In this video, we see about glaucoma evaluation. So in case of glaucoma, we have to correlate between optic disc evaluation, field defect and intraocular pressure. Classification. So primary open angle glaucoma include normal tension glaucoma and ocular hypertension. Primary angle closure include acute angle closure and subacute angle closure. Secondary open angle includes pseudoexfoliation, pigmentary, phacolytic, and secondary to intraocular inflammation, secondary to high episcleral venous pressure or steroid therapy. Whereas secondary angle closure include due to peripheral anterior synechia, swollen lens or pupillary seclusion, anterior movement of iris lens diaphragm, and neovascular glaucoma and plateau iris syndrome or secondary angle closure. When come to POAG, also known as chronic simple glaucoma, generally it is bilateral, but it is not always symmetrical. Adult onset with IOP more than 21 mm, an open angle on gonioscopy and characteristic optic disc cupping and visual field loss. Predisposing factors are IOP, age more than 40 and blacks, diabetes, myopia and reduction in the perfusion pressure, BP minus IOP and thyroid disease, cigarette smoking, steroid use and retinal vascular diseases. Whereas PACG, the term angle closure refer to occlusion of trabecular meshwork by the peripheral iris, iridotrabecular contact, obstructing the aqueous outflow. So angle closure can be primary when it occurs in an anatomically predisposed eye or secondary to another ocular or systemic disease. So classified into PACS, primary angle closure suspect. Gonioscopy shows posterior meshwork ITC in 3 or more quadrants but no pass. Iridotrabecular contact in 3 or more quadrants. But normal IOP, normal disc and normal visual field no pass is PACS. Whereas PSCG, primary angle closure glaucoma, gonioscopy shows 3 or more quadrants of ITC with raised IOP under PAS, peripheral anterior synechia or excessive pigment smudging on trabecular meshwork. Disc and field are normal. So abnormal are IOP or PAS. Whereas primary angle closure is ITC in 3 or more quadrants with glaucomatous optic neuropathy. Optic nerve damage from an from episode of severe IOP elevation such as acute angle closure may not appear as typical glaucoma cupping. So PACG risk factors are age. So average age of relative pupillary block is 60 years, gender females, race Far Eastern and Indian Asians. Genetical factors are important but poorly defined. Refraction. Eyes with pure pupillary block are typically hypermetropic, although this is not as clear cut with non-pupillary block, which can also occur in myopic. Axial length. Short eyes tend to have shallow eyes with non-ophthalmos have very short eye with a proportionately large lens and are at particular risk. So symptoms and signs in case of POAG, open angle glaucoma, usually asymptomatic. Patient will have no symptoms in the early stages of the disease. Whereas in case of late stages of the disease, we get the visual field defect followed by tunnel vision and central fixation loss. So signs, whenever we suspect any patient with glaucoma, first we have to measure IOP. Most patients will have high IOP, but nearly half of the patients also we get IOP at 21 or lower. So after checking visual acuity followed by IOP, we have to do gonioscopy always because we have to look at the angle. So if it is open angle with no pass, it is open angle glaucoma. If the angle is close with past history, it can be classified into angle closure glaucoma. So followed by fundus examination. After gonioscopy, we have to do the fundus examination where the typical disc features will appear. So loss of neuroretinal rim starts at the inferior followed by superior, and Drans hemorrhage is splinter or nerve fiber hemorrhage that crosses the disc margin, followed by nerve fiber layer defects and cup disc asymmetry of more than 0.2 in the absence of cause like anisymmetry of A and different nerve size. So cup disc asymmetry and enlarged cup disc ratio more than 0.6 strongly suggest glaucoma, and progressive enlargement of the cup and bionetting is angulation of blood vessels as they exit the nerve. Next, followed by we have to check the perimetry of the patient for visual field defect. Common defects are nasal step, paracentral scotoma, arcuate scotoma extending from the blind spot. Defects usually respect the horizontal meridian and altitudinal defect and generalized depression. So on the disc examination, we have to examine neuroretinal rim. So normal rim has orange or pink in color, and characteristic inferior is the broadest, followed by superior, followed by nasal, and followed by temporal. Cardinal features of glaucomatous optic neuropathy is loss of NRR from the inner edge of the rim. So features that should raise suspicion that glaucomatous damage has already occurred include any notching of the rim or hemorrhage that crossing the rim or undercutting of the rim or asymmetry of rim width between the eyes in the absence of asymmetry of disc size. An abnormally thin rim in one or two sectors. Approximate rule is that VCTR more than 0.7 loss of neuroretinal rim strongly suggests glaucoma. Next, optic disc size is important in deciding if a cup disc ratio is normal. Normal median vertical diameter for non-glaucomatous disc is 1.5 mm in Caucasian population. Next, cup disc ratio indicate diameter of cup to diameter of the cup expressed as fraction of diameter of disc. Vertical is used and NRR occupies a relatively similar cross-sectional area in different eyes. So small disc will have small cup with median cup disc ratio of 0.35. Large disc will have large cup with median cup disc ratio of 0.5. So any individual cup asymmetry, cup disc asymmetry more than 0.2 strongly suggests glaucoma. So if the disc diameter is less than 1, mean cup disc ratio 0.26. If it is more than 2, it is 0.55. So disc size is extremely variable. It can be measured by using small size spot of a direct ophthalmoscope. This spot size can be used to estimate whether a disc is large or smaller than the average. Disc size can also be evaluated using conventional photographic means with overlay grid as well as optic nerve head analysis. How to measure optic disc size is one important aspect. So on slit lamp biomicroscopy, we use 90 diopter lens and we measure the length of the slit beam. So we have to, if we use 90 diopter, we have to multiply the length with 1.3 as correction factor. So average vertical diameter 1.8 mm, average horizontal is 1.7 mm. This is small disc, this is medium, and this is large disc where 2.4 is the disc size. So small disc vertical diameter less than 1.5 mm, large disc vertical diameter more than 2.2 mm. So here neuroretinal rim, here it is orange, inferior, superior, nasal and temporal. Whereas here there is cupping, glaucomatous changes are seen with cupping and thinning of neuroretinal rim. Next, RNFL layer. So retinal nerve fiber layer is seen as striations in the light reflexes from the bundles of nerve fiber commonly seen with red free light either on direct ophthalmoscope or fundus camera. RNFL is seen better at posterior pole in the peripapillary region where they reach a critical thickness, especially at the vertical poles of the optic nerve head. So here this is RNFL defect. Here this is RNFL defect. Scleral lip is seen as thin, even white rim outside the disc margin. It represents anterior extension of sclera between the choroid and optic nerve. So gray crescent is seen within peripheral tissue of optic nerve head. Scleral lip is seen peripheral to the gray crescent. It is often bilateral and is usually located along the temporal or inferotemporal disc margin. Gray crescent is due to internal extension of brush membrane in the peripapillary scleral ring. Alpha zone and beta zone. So alpha zone is better detected at temporal disc margin. On the inner side, it is bounded by zone beta or peripapillary scleral ring, on the outer side by the retina. So alpha zone seen as irregular hyperpigmentation and hypopigmentation. It is due to peripapillary crescent of RPE irregularity close to the margin of brush membrane. It is present in almost all normal eyes, whereas beta zone is seen between peripheral NRR and zone alpha. NRR and zone alpha, between these two we have beta zone. It represents retraction of RPE from the disc margin due to atrophy of RPE. Sclera and large choroidal vessels are visible due to RPE atrophy. It is more frequent and more extensive in patients with POAG and normotensil glaucoma. Location and extent of beta zone, beta atrophy correlate with visual field loss. It indicates that area has poor perfusion. This is peripapillary atrophy. So here, normal optic nerve head and visual field. So this is blind spot. Neuroretinal rim is healthy with central cupping, whereas glaucomatous optic nerve head and associated inferior vision field loss. So here we are seeing RNFL field defects, RNFL fiber defects, and we are seeing corresponding vision loss. Here extensive neural loss in severe glaucoma associated with severe visual loss. So there is marked cupping and there is bionetting sign, angulation along the disc margin, and we are seeing field defect. So this is bionetting and cupping and arteriolar attenuation, nasalization of the vessels and glaucomatous changes. These are disc hemorrhages. Next important aspect in the assessment of glaucoma patient is perimetry. So in the perimetry chart, we have patient data followed by reliability indices. So false positive error, false negative error, and fixation loss. Followed by we have one gray chart and scales, mean deviation, total deviation, and pattern standard deviation, pattern deviation. And first we come to the fixation loss. So fixation loss should be less than 22% and false positive and false negative less than 33%. This is gray scale. Next, total deviation. So total deviation plot is zone 4. This is total deviation. So these are the retinal sensitivity points that we get from the perimetry. Total deviation is point by point difference from the expected value for age-related normal individuals. It reveals generalized depression. It cannot confirm the scotoma. Look at the number and pattern of symbols. So in this patient, when we compare to normal perimetry, there is marked loss of sensitivity in this area. So similarly, in the gray chart, we are getting the defects in this area. So it indicates generalized depression of the visual field. Whereas pattern deviation, so this is total deviation, this is pattern deviation. So pattern deviation reveals focal defects after adjusting for overall depression of the hill of the vision. It confirms the scotoma. After adjusting the values, if we get the values abnormal, it confirms the localized depression, it confirms the localized scotoma. So here normal hill of vision with localized scotoma, whereas generalized depression along with hidden scotoma. So here there is generalized loss in the total deviation chart, and in the pattern deviation we also get isolated scotoma. So in this perimetry we get the generalized depression but in the total deviation, but in the pattern deviation we didn't get any field loss. So it is due to generalized media opacity like cataract. Next, followed by global indices include mean deviation, pattern standard deviation, and SF and CPSD. First we come to mean deviation. So mean deviation is average of all the numbers in the total deviation plot. It indicates overall deviation of visual field from the normal. Positive numbers indicate an elevated field, negative numbers indicate depressed field. So it is the average of the all visual field of the patient. So if we get more minus value means patient have more vision loss. Next, mean deviation provides similar information to total deviation. It cannot confirm the presence of scotoma. Next, we get the pattern standard deviation, also derived from total deviation plot. It indicates degree to which numbers differ from each other, highlights roughness or potholes in the hill of vision. So, pattern standard deviation provides similar information to the pattern deviation, calls attention to the scotoma. So, if the pattern standard deviation is rising, means there is more chance that localized scotoma will be there in the patient perimetry. Next, short-term fluctuation SF. So intra-test error in threshold determination. So standard deviation of 10 predetermined points that are each tested twice. So there are 10 predetermined points, they are tested twice. So this is short-term fluctuation. So CPSD is PSD corrected for SF. So if PSD after correcting for short-term fluctuation, that is CPSD. So if SF is due to unreliability, CPSD, if we get CPSD better, SF is unreliable. If we get PSD better, SF is due to pathology. So review is mean deviation, total deviation gives generalized depression can suspect scotoma, whereas PSD and pattern deviation plot gives local irregularity and confirms the scotoma. Next, glaucoma hemifield test. So classified within normal limit, outside normal limit, borderline and generalized reduction of sensitivity, low patient reliability and abnormal high sensitivity. So characteristics of glaucoma defects. Asymmetrical across the horizontal midline, located in the mid-periphery 5 to 25 degree from the fixation. These are reproducible, not attributed to other pathology and localized, correlated with the appearance of optic disc and neighboring areas. Criteria for glaucomatous defects. Pattern deviation plot more than 3 non-edge points with p-value less than 5%. One p-value with p-value less than 1% and cluster in the arcuate area. So p-value less than 5, one with less than 1%. Criteria for glaucomatous defect. CPSD or PSD depressed with p-value less than 5%. So CPSD, PSD depressed with less than 5%. Criteria for glaucoma defect next is abnormal glaucoma hemifield test. So glaucoma hemifield test outside normal limit is another criteria. Three criteria for glaucomatous defects are pattern deviation plot more than 3 non-edge points with p-value less than 5, 1 point with p-value less than 1% and cluster in the arcuate area. CPSD or PSD with depressed with p-value less than 5% and abnormal glaucoma hemifield test. So revision include, so in this perimetry we are getting generalized loss. In the pattern standard deviation we are getting no field defect, so it is due to cataract. So in this perimetry we are getting loss here and which persisted in the CPSD, so it is glaucoma. In this case generalized loss along with local field defect, so cataract with glaucoma. Next we come to tonometry. So factors influencing the tonometry are central corneal thickness, ocular rigidity and corneal curvature and astigmatism. For every 10 micron deviation from assumed mean, 520 microns of CCT and average error is 0.7 mm Hg. In case of approximately 1 mm Hg for every 3 diopter of increase in the corneal power. If 3 diopter is increased, 1 mm IOP will be increased. So underestimated for WTR with the rule, overestimated for against the rule, 1 mm of Hg error for every 4 diopter of astigmatism. How we check digital tonometry? Response of eyeball to pressure applied by pulp of the finger. Rest the both hands on the patient's forehead and alternatively apply just enough pressure on the globe above the superior tarsal plate to indent it slightly with one index finger while feeling the compliance with another. So indents easily are found to touch as the inference. It is not accurate, it is subjective. When we come to non-contact tonometry, a puff of room air jet creates a constant force that momentarily flattens the cornea. The force of air jet generated by solenoid activated piston increases linearly over the time. When the reflected light is at peak intensity, the cornea is presumed to be flattened. The time elapsed is directly related to the force of jet necessary to flatten the cornea and correspondingly to IOP. The time from internal reference point to the moment of flattening is measured and converted into IOP. A puff of a puff of air of known area is generated against the cornea is B, and at the moment of corneal applanation, a light T, which is usually reflected from the normal cornea into the space and suddenly is reflected R into the optical sensor A. When sensor is activated by the reflected light, the air generator is switched off. The level of force at which the generator stops is recorded and a computer calculates and displays the IOP. Next we come to applanation tonometry that works on imperfect principle. So pressure of a body of fluid encapsulated within a sphere is directly proportional to the force W required to applanate the area A of the sphere. W is equal to P into A. Modified Imbert fixed law is W plus S is equal to PA1 plus B, where W is tonometer force, S is surface tension of precorneal tear film, P is intraocular pressure, A1 is inner corneal area of applanation, B is corneal rigidity. So when A1 is 7.35 millimeter square, S balances B and W is equal to P. This internal area of applanation is achieved when the diameter of external area of the corneal applanation is 3.06 mm. So grams of force applied to flatten 3.06 mm diameter of cornea is multiplied by 10 is directly converted to IOP in millimeter of Hg. These are parts in the Goldman tonometer. Procedure. Instrument is mounted on the slit lamp. Examiner's view is directed through the center of the biprism. Biprism is attached by a rod to a housing. Housing contain a coil spring and a series of levers that are used to adjust the force of the biprism against the cornea. Two beam splitting prisms within the probe optically convert circular area of corneal contact into two semicircles. Angle between illumination and microscope should be approximately 60 degree and magnification is 10 times. Maximum illumination, maximum beam light, room illumination is reduced. A fixation light may be placed in front of the fellow eye. A tension knob is set at 1 gram and patient is asked to look up but not more than 15 degree above the horizontal. Instill topical anesthesia. Edge of the corneal contact is made apparent by instilling fluorescent dye. In cobalt blue light and the bright prism should not touch the lids or lashes because they stimulate blinking and squeezing. Patient should blink the eyes once or twice to spread the fluorescent stain tear film over the cornea. Then keep the eyes open wide. Should not apply any pressure on the globe because this raises the IOP. In some patients, hold the eyelid open with thumb and index finger of one hand against the orbital rim. By manually rotating a dial calibrated in grams, force is adjusted by changing the length of the spring within the device. The prisms are calibrated in such a fashion that inner margin of semicircles touch when 3.06 mm of cornea is applanated. The IOP is then read directly from a scale on the tonometer housing. Fluorescein rings should be approximately 0.25 to zero point 0.3 mm in thickness or about 1/10 of the diameter of the flattened cornea. Fluorescent semicircles are viewed through the biprism and are force against the cornea is adjusted until the inner edges of the prisms are overlapped. So when we get the false low IOP, inadequate fluorescein stain, thin cornea, corneal edema, and with the rule astigmatism and prolonged contact and repeated tonometry. So falsely high IOP, excessive fluorescence, thick cornea, steep cornea against the rule astigmatism, wider meniscus, widening the lid fissure excessively and elevating eyes more than 15 degrees. So Perkins is handheld tonometer uses same prism tips as GAT. So the prism is illuminated by battery powered bulbs. Advantage over the GAT are portable, counterbalance, so it can be used in any position of the patient. Infants and children in the OT at the bedside for non-ambulatory patient who cannot be examined at the slit lamp. So in this example, there is early acquired pit of the optic nerve occurring in the superior temporal optic nerve head of the left eye. So optical coherence tomography of the retinal nerve fiber layer showing thinning corresponding to the region of APON. The visual field shows inferior paracentral arcuate defect consistent with this finding. Next we come to the normotension glaucoma is a form of open angle glaucoma characterized by glaucomatous optic neuropathy and corresponding visual field defects in patients with IOP measurement consistently lower than the 21 mmHg. Signs are following features may be more frequently seen in NTG compared to POAG. Flame-shaped hemorrhage of the optic nerve rim, Drans hemorrhage, deep focal notching of the rim and peripapillary atrophy. So normotensive glaucoma will have history of systemic hypertension or hypotension, ocular trauma or inflammation, possible prior intraocular pressure elevation or other causes of optic neuropathy like medications like systemic or topical inhaled nasal steroids, and compromised ocular perfusion like sleep apnea syndrome, syncope, Raynaud's phenomena, anemia, hypotension, and neurological symptoms like headache, weakness, dizziness, diplopia, and loss of consciousness. Next is optic nerve in the normotensive glaucoma. So optic nerves with large surface area and with thinner inner inferior inferior temporal rim. PPA in a crescent or halo configuration, peripapillary atrophy adjacent to the areas of great disc thinning and corresponding to vision field loss. While thinning of optic nerve rim is observed in all POAG, focal thinning or notching is more commonly observed in NTG. So acquired pit of optic nerve which are thought to be due to focal loss of neuroretinal rim tissue and shown as localized excavation of the lamina cribrosa are more frequent in NTG. More prevalent in low pressure glaucoma than high pressure glaucoma, inferior part of the disc more than superior. Next is ocular hypertension. So definition include ocular hypertension IOP more than 21 with no evidence of optic nerve damage and no visual field defect and open angle and no systemic or ocular cause for raised IOP. So risk factors are thin cornea and elevated IOP, increasing age, vertical cupping of the disc more than 0.6 and increased pattern standard deviation on threshold perimeter, abnormalities in the optic nerve with scanning laser ophthalmoscopy and pseudo exfoliation. So ocular hypertension is usually diagnosis of exclusion. We get history to rule out secondary causes for elevated IOP like trauma or steroid usage of antihypertensives as they cause IOP fluctuation. Advanced age like more than 50 years or African American descent, myopia and positive family history or severity of glaucoma in a first degree relative. So pattern standard deviation, ocular hypertensive study found that greater PUSD on SAP correlated with increased risk of progression to POAG with 0.2 decibel increase in PST, 22% increase in the relative risk was found in OHTS. So optic nerve increased vertical and horizontal cup disc ratio is a risk factor for progression, and increased CDR by 0.1% lead to 32% and 27% increase in the relative risk in vertical and horizontal cupping respectively. So OHTS, elevated IOP yes, cupping yes, vertical, increasing gauge yes, thin cornea yes, whereas family history no, decreased outflow facility NT and diabetes protective, vascular disease no, and poor vision no, and increased pattern standard deviation yes. Thank you.